So yeah, it's April Fool's and all, but rest assured this isn't a prank or a joke video. It just so happens that a lot of potential DCU leaks came out kind of late into March 31st, forcing me to upload this video on April Fool's. This video will be going over a few hints from James Gunn on Twitter which point towards a potential team movie or TV show with 4 yet unconfirmed characters, as well as an argument between James Gunn and his archenemy Grace Randolph regarding the potential casting of Superman, and there are many yet non-debunked leaks that might reveal several more projects and many more details, so make sure to like this video and let's get started. James Gunn doubled down on saying that a Wonder Woman animated series is in development. I'm still talking about it since it's possible it'll be in the DCU, but I'm hoping and I'm thinking it's much more likely to be its own thing, either its own separate universe completely, or maybe in the same universe as the recently confirmed to be moving to Adult Swim My Adventures with Superman, or even Batman the Caped Crusader. James Gunn posted this image without a caption, which features dozens of heroes and villains from across the DC universe, and at first glance this really just looks like the entire DC universe, so that doesn't really mean anything. He's posted images of the whole DC universe before, however this is different. It clearly features 4 main characters taking center stage. Those characters are Mr. Terrific, who's been hinted at before with a similar captionless image, Plastic Man, who is a character Gunn has confirmed he pitched a movie to Warner Brothers about in the past, Metamorpho, who's been very lightly hinted at, as well as the lesser-known ancestor of the Legion of Superheroes member Phantom Girl, who's also Phantom Girl. Together, this quartet makes up a team known as the Terrifics, which is where this image comes from, an issue of the Terrifics. The Terrifics were a very recent addition to the DC universe, having debuted in 2018 as a part of a line of comics called The New Age of DC Heroes, which was very unsuccessful, although the Terrifics was the most successful comics from that line. A few of these comics acted as pastiches of the Marvel universe, like The New Damage being inspired by the Hulk, Sideways being at least visually inspired by Spider-Man, and you probably could have already guessed who the Terrifics were inspired by: the Fantastic Four. I mean, Mr. Fantastic is basically just Plastic Man and Mr. Terrific combined, Metamorpho is basically the Thing and Human Torch combined, and I guess they have Phantom Girl as the counterpart of Invisible Woman. From this hint and previous hints towards these particular characters, I think it's very likely a Terrifics project is in development. What form that will take is unknown. I think we can rule out live-action TV shows since Plastic Man and Metamorpho would be very difficult to pull off for a number of episodes on that budget, and while a live-action movie is certainly possible, the comparisons to the Fantastic Four and the fact that the Fantastic Four are getting their own movie in 2025 and that'll hopefully lead to a movie franchise, it's less likely. I think, based off of the name recognition, the cost of the powers, and the colorful nature of these characters, an animated TV show is probably the most likely, and I would definitely like to see that. I think that could be really cool. I do think that this weird present-day version of Phantom Girl can definitely just easily be replaced by someone else, and if they're going for like that Phantom thing, then maybe the Earth 4 hero Nightshade would work as a suitable substitute. I just don't think we should complicate things, and we shouldn't see Phantom Girl before or even outside of the Legion of Superheroes, a group of characters who have not been hinted at all, and certainly haven't been confirmed to be getting a project in this chapter of the DCU. Moving on from the Terrifics, James Gunn just had a whole argument with Grace Randolph on Twitter. Gunn has said before that she's practically always wrong about her scoop, so I think we could just safely ignore her completely. But this time around, she said that they are very close to a Superman casting, or in fact, might have already cast him. Gunn said this isn't true, they haven't talked to a single actor or began auditions yet. Grace replied that since it's not true, she guesses she could just say the top choice is Logan Lerman, which to me implies that she either thinks that Gunn is lying, or that Gunn is going to be changing his top choice just to prove her wrong. Gunn replied that he doesn't even know who this is, and would later go on to clarify that that wasn't a dig at the actor. He doesn't know many actors' names, but does recognize him by my face, and then also liked a few tweets from people praising Logan Lerman or telling Gunn that to keep him in mind for another casting even if it isn't Superman. Basically, what we could take away from this is that Grace Randolph doesn't know what she's talking about, and we can now eliminate Logan Lerman from contention for the role of Superman. However, it's very possible that he will be cast in another role in the DCU. I don't really think he would have been a good Superman, or at the very least, it doesn't really look like he fits the role. He does have black hair and blue eyes. But also, according to Google, he's somewhere between 5'7" and 5'9", which I don't think is tall enough to be Superman, so he was probably never being considered anyway, although there are some characters who could be shorter that he could definitely be cast as. That brings us to the potential leaks. There are two separate scooper sources who may have revealed a total of 6 more projects in the DCU in addition to the 10 projects we've already known about, and interestingly, none of these projects are surprising as they've all either been hinted at in some way before, or are a natural progression of things. The projects that this particular scooper apparently heard about are Animal Man, Lobo, Justice League: The New Frontier, Superman vs. the Authority, Peacemaker Season 2, and Mr. Terrific. Let's go over each one at a time, go over previous hints towards these projects and how valid they seem, and what form of project they will probably take. There's Animal Man, which was hinted at through an article from Looper that James Gunn liked about the most obscure DC Comics characters who deserve the James Gunn film treatment, and Animal Man was not only the first entry, but also the thumbnail of the article in the tweet he liked. Given the often very out there nature of Animal Man, in spite of the title of that article, I don't think it's a film that he's going to be getting. I think it's probably an animated TV show, although any form of media is possible and it would work. A live action movie, a live action TV show, an animated TV show, or even an animated movie, which we don't have any confirmed for the DCU yet, although James Gunn said there will be a few. Any of those could work. And then there's Lobo, who I don't think I need to explain all the hints towards him, especially in regards to Jason Momoa potentially playing him. The most likely project for Lobo, given the probable space-based story and either time-consuming or expensive design, is anything but a live-action TV show. I think animated movie or animated TV show is possible, but a live-action movie, given his popularity and also Jason Momoa's stardom, is probably the most likely. I'll be saving The New Frontier for last, which brings us to Superman vs. the Authority. This particular movie hasn't technically been hinted at in any real way, but it does indeed feel like the natural progression of the chapter when it comes to Superman and the Authority, who are two franchises in the same universe whose main characters have basically completely conflicting ideals. The Authority was also used as the direct inspiration for the Elite, a very similar group of characters who have the honor of being the main villains of one of the best Superman stories of all time, What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, as well as one of the best Superman movies of all time, Superman vs. the Elite, which is its animated adaptation. With the Authority having the role they have in this universe, it's not surprising that the Elite would be replaced by the Authority, the team they were based on, and that will probably be a more two-sided conflict in a movie that serves as the sequel to both Superman Legacy and the Authority, and this is a movie that I would definitely be very interested in seeing. There's Peacemaker Season 2, which was confirmed a while ago. Gunn even said that Waller would take place between the 2 seasons of Peacemaker, so this is a very safe bet. There is Mr. Terrific, which connects back to what I talked about earlier in regards to the Terrifics. Interestingly, this take says that the project will be Mr. Terrific, not the Terrifics, but I think it's possible the project will either just be a Mr. Terrific project, or it will be called Mr. Terrific because it's a better title, and Mr. Terrific will be the main character, but also the other Terrifics will appear, and that's what the show will focus on. And I say show because that's what I think is most likely, as I said earlier, an animated TV show. Then there's Justice League: The New Frontier, which a previous video of mine from a few weeks ago talked all about. Yeah, there's a ton of evidence that the saga will build up to the Center as the big bad, and a Justice League movie based on The New Frontier, which you can hear all about by watching that video. This scoop, which by the way, everything I talked about up until now was from scooper Casey Walsh, is also backed up by another scooper, Jeff Snyder, who said the same thing, that there's going to be a Justice League: The New Frontier movie, everything in Gods and Monsters, it will lead up to that movie. And it seems like, yeah, that's what's happening. There's a ton of evidence, there's a lot of hints from James Gunn. Again, you could hear all about it watching that video, and now two separate scoopers have said the same thing. Justice League The New Frontier is what it's all leading up to. It would definitely have to be very different from the source material, as the original comic, which came out in the 2000s, was very rooted in the 1950s and 60s, as the DC Universe transitioned from the golden age of the JSA to the silver age of the Justice League of America. You can't do that in the year 2030. There are also a lot of confirmed characters who didn't exist at that point in time. The comic, like I said, came out in the 2000s, but they only used characters up until the 1960s, so characters like Booster Gold, Swamp Thing, John Stewart, Damian Wayne, they didn't exist in that comic, so things would have to be very different. The comic is also all about how the universe and the heroes in it are scattered and they come together in this comic. It's basically an origin story for the Justice League, and I don't like the idea of that. The fact that Damian Wayne is Robin, Supergirl is probably going to be 21 years old, we're pretty late into some of the timeline of the DC Universe, and the Justice League has never formed. That also means probably the Teen Titans have never formed. I don't like the idea of that for this universe. And I'm having a hard time seeing the Center as an effective big bad. He's like an island without much of a personality. It could be hard to connect to him as a villain. Plus, he was basically single-handedly defeated by Hal Jordan, who just became Green Lantern, so he would definitely have to be a lot more powerful. Still though, if they make a couple changes, maybe make it so that he's an entity who's controlling an island, and it's the entity that we actually see fighting at the end, I think that could work really well. They just have to make a few changes. Looking at this leak, it does seem like a few very obvious picks, all of which have hints towards them or are very obvious choices, but then again, things like Animal Man were hinted at far less than certain other heroes, so it's not 100% the exact 6 safest bets, meaning I think the leak has a bit more potential validity to it. And finally for this video, a verified source from the DCEU leaks subreddit, which there are a lot of unverified sources that I won't be talking about at all in this video, which are interesting and do give some details, but there's no validity to them whatsoever. This, however, is verified that for Superman Legacy, Jimmy Olsen and Lex Luthor are currently being cast, which is, yes, relatively unimportant news, but it is always cool to hear when the development of this movie trugs along, and specifically with the casting, it will be exciting when they are cast. Also, according to a verified source, The Authority is going to be written by Jeremy Slater, whose writing filmography is very iffy. He has a decent track record with TV shows like Moon Knight and The Umbrella Academy, but a bad track record with movies like Fantastic and Death Note, and The Authority is a movie. That being said, Matthew Vaughn is apparently in talks to direct, according to this verified source. Matthew Vaughn has a great track record when it comes to comic book movies, having directed some great movies like Kick-Ass, X-Men First Class, which I love, and Kingsman The Secret Service, which I love as well. So this is a bit up and down here. Jeremy Slater writing doesn't sound great, but Matthew Vaughn directing does. In fact, The Authority I think would fit him very well, with things like Kingsman The Secret Service and even some of X-Men First Class kind of being a bit similar with its moral ambiguity, so I think this could be very, very good. But that's it for today's leaks and scoops and hints from James Gunn. Let me know your thoughts on all of it in the comments down below, and goodbye.